So when we go to the meeting, remember when we were talking about the different models? In your book, and we'll continue, not today, because I want to do the mock counseling session.
The cognitive.
But, right, the different ones that we did, the psychodynamic and stuff, there is an actual model that is the disease model. So the disease model is where addiction is a primary disease rather than a secondary condition. Disease is chronic and incurable. Abstinence is the only option. So AA follows this model. It is believed that it's genetic, it's believed that it is a disease, and you need to be abstinence. So when you go into an AA meeting, one of the things, and I don't know if you were here when I was talking about running a meeting, and this is one of the things that you're going to be able to do with your degree is lead groups. Okay, so that's one of the reasons for not only the visit to the group, but also so that you can experience not only leading a group, but also have the experience of this particular type of model. They have a very formatted way. They start their meeting, they have someone reading this, someone reading that. That's very scripted. But the concept is, and you'll hear this in the literature, that AA is, that alcoholism is a disease, and that anyone's suffering from it, and that there's a higher power, that whatever you believe your higher power to be, it does not mean that you have to have a God. It could be a stick, whatever it is what's going to sort of help you relieve yourself of this addiction. And you'll hear people share. And people they'll oftentimes in these open meetings, they'll read from, they have a big book, they have different literature, and they'll display it. Oftentimes they have a lot of literature they'll display. We'll be able to look at the different things. They'll read a passage, and you're more than welcome to share if you want. So for instance, I've attended a few of different Overeaters Anonymous, I've been to AA, I've been to several different meetings, and you can share. Let's say they read a passage about time management, and you resonate with something that was shared. You can go in turn and share. So it's not always that it's about addiction. It's not always that it is about alcoholism. It could be just stuff that afflicts everybody. But it is oftentimes these tiny little things that will lead an addict to drink because it's their coping skill. It's what they cope with. I had a hard day at work, I go home and I drink a bottle of wine. It's my coping skill, rather than eating, rather than working out. So that's why in an AA meeting, oftentimes they'll talk about what appear to be very mundane topics, because it's the little things that can trigger them. It doesn't have to be a car accident or someone dying. It could be, I simply was late to class, everyone was looking at me, everyone was watching me, oh my God, my teacher this, all the stuff, and mohom, like I call it, that of thinking that we have in our thoughts, and then that leads you to the bar. So you'll oftentimes in a meeting hear literature that's quite what we would maybe call as mundane, because it's considered an addiction that abstinence is the only quote-unquote cure. There's no cure, that's the only answer to it. Okay, so it's only one model of many, and it's a 12-step model. And there's a lot of literature. It's a huge organization. It's an international organization. It's a neat experience. Of course, there's branches. There's NA, there's OA, there's a ton of different spin-offs. I think even spending. I know I've been to Overeaters Anonymous. I've been to Food Addicts Anonymous. I've been to Alcoholics Anonymous. I know there's Narcotics Anonymous. I think there's Spending Anonymous or something like that. There's a lot of different, because it's about which way do you cope, which skill do you use in coping. But in particular for addiction, the premise is that it is a disease, and not everybody has that same belief model. If that isn't, as a therapist, your belief model, you may not take your client or lead them to a 12-step model. You may actually encourage them to use substances. And if they're in AA, you actually might discourage them. Imagine that. What a conflict that could be. Or vice versa. What if you're a 12-step believer? What if you're a believer that addiction is a disease and your client doesn't, and you're trying to get them to AA and they don't want to because they don't think that it's a disease, and they think that they can reach a 48 to 52. They might be at 90%, but they believe that they can get to a 48 to 52, and you're like, no, it's a 0 or 100. You could see a conflict there between therapist and client. So these are important things to know, that not all therapists and not all clients believe in an addiction model. And these are important questions to ask when you're seeking therapy. The book does a good job in several of the chapters of giving a lot of case studies. In this particular chapter of motivational interviewing, I think it's chapter 4, it's a really good chapter. They have a lot of anecdotes and a lot of case studies that I found really good. So, Tanisha, you're going to be our client?
Yes.
Okay, who's going to be our therapist?
I'll be the therapist.
Okay, excellent. Come on down. After we do this, we're going to do a little bit about anxiety, and we're going to do a little, like a guided meditation where we're going to work with our emotions and our body.
Emotions.
Yes, because having a body sucks. But human. And that's the other thing. Emotions is what the problem.
Yeah, emotions.
It's all about the emotions and not knowing what to do with them, where to shove them. And then we oftentimes, Pedro, will look to drinking or drugs or eating or spending or sleeping or sex or gambling, whatever it is, to soothe that. That is one of the things is your client will try to find a distraction. Okay, so when we do a little bit on anxiety after this, we'll see that the distraction is trying to avoid feeling what we need to feel. Okay, so she's going to be an alcoholic. So we're doing a little bit of role play, but what I want you to do is I want you to use motivational interviewing skills, okay? You're allowed to role play as you wish. You can pretend to be an alcoholic, you can say you don't have an issue, but you drink a bottle of wine every night. I don't care, we're just role playing, okay? So you're gonna start with the empathy. So you're gonna create that loving environment. You're then going to go to discrepancy. She will inevitably, because there will be an incongruency, there will be something that's discrepancy. If she resists one thing, you're not going to push on it, you'll go with something else. And what did I say was for?
Yeah, I
Yeah, we're talking about
Oh, self-efficacy. I said it, but I forgot to write it. This is where you get the client to identify their issue. Remember, like I said with my client this morning, they, where she says, wait, Francis, I don't know if I ever grew up. Okay, where she has to identify in her own words, recognize where the problem lies. And it may not be, I have a drinking problem. Remember that, okay? Small steps. So, first session. Let's just make it first session.
Hello there. How are you? Hey. My name is Dr. Who. And your name?
Nisha. I'm Nisha.
Nice to meet you, Nisha. So, okay, how are you doing today? Okay. Okay. And what brings you in?
My taste for alcohol.
Taste, what kind of taste are we speaking?
It's different flavors right now. Just the taste for alcohol.
What's your favorite flavor?
I would have to say I like daiquiri, so strawberry daiquiri with some Hennessy. Yeah.
Okay, and how you apparently drink?
Oh. Apparently it's not. Yes. Yes. A lot.
And what may be the reason you think for it?
I drink just to drink. I drink just to get that mellow feeling. I drink when I'm hurting. Well, depending on where I'm at. Depending on where I'm at. Because I'm at work, I can't drink how I want. I really want to take a shot. So I imagine myself taking a shot to make me feel better. Just invisible. But in my head, I'm drinking. I keep a bottle in the trunk. So everywhere I go, I have alcohol with me. But for the most part, I drink to be mellow.
So the taste is actually always
It's there, but I want it to be a stronger scent.
Okay, so let me just interrupt for a moment. A moment ago, you asked a question, and I didn't know if there was judgment. Do you guys remember?
Yeah, I noticed it too. But
Okay.
fuck.
No, but
It was.
it's just slipping my mind.
Why? I didn't-
No, you, so you
Oh,
like
no,
to
no,
drink?
So you drink.
So you like
okay,
to
so you drink. Okay, did you find judgment in that?
Is how she said it.
Yeah,
Like,
the
she
way-
wasn't sure about it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all
'cause I
right.
also-
Yeah, it's like I felt like she had another question, but that was the question that came out.
Okay, did you feel judged?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed like it was.
Yeah, it was a different question, but that was the one that came out.
Okay. And also, I want you to pay attention to questions. Remember, questions should be open-ended. You're asking more yes and no questions. You're not having dialogue. You're not going to be able to listen if you're just getting yes and no, little snippets. Let the client talk. So, what's a typical day look like?
Right.
Things like that. Let the client be able to get going so that you can hear and see body language and things like that. Okay? And remember, we're starting now creating empathy. That's the first thing.
So, how does alcohol make you feel? Can we say that? Yeah. How does alcohol make you
Good, depending on why I'm drinking. Because if I'm sad and I'm drinking alcohol, like, I tell myself it's helping, but I don't think it's necessarily helping. But I feel like, oh, let me drink to make myself feel better, but I drink more. So I'm not necessarily helping myself.
feel? You also stated previously that it depends where you're at.
Yes.
What do you mean where?
Okay, so
Makes sense.
I don't drink at work. I don't drink before work, but after work, I'm running straight to the bottle. Whether it's the one in my trunk or the one that I got home.
Okay, but what reasons? Like, what-
Okay, so right there is an opportunity to create a safe space. What, okay, no, but this is why I stopped you so we could talk about it. What is she giving you where you can validate that she's doing something positive?
That she's not drinking before work or at work.
Okay, so what could you say to her, well,
What could I say to her with that?
remember, empathy. Right now, you have to assume that mom is fucked up, dad's fucked up. One of them fucked her up. You gotta keep that in mind. A wrong alliance existed with one parent. So you as a therapist hold the space to rewrite that narrative with mom or dad. We're just gonna assume mom, just for the hell of it, okay? Addiction, fluids, toxic liquid, toxic womb, we're just gonna say that, okay? So if that's the case, we're assuming that we have to create an empathic environment that, okay, so she's, yeah, well, at least you're not drinking at work and at freaking, and before work or whatever it was. So try to start creating the empathy.
That's where I'm. But
Okay.
I'm gonna try. So okay, so at least again, you're not, as you stated before, you're not drinking during work or before work. And why do you think that is? Can I say that? Or is that-
You can say anything. There is,
I just-
I mean,
I-
well, not anything.
No, yeah.
Yeah, the internet's
No,
not easy.
I think you have to remember the one one thing Dr. He has always said, when you ask a question, you have to know why you're asking. You have to think about what kind of answer you're trying to get the client to say to you.
Right, what do you have in mind? If she says to me, she's not drinking before, what was it, before work and during work? Well, hell, that's half the day. You're managing pretty okay. So we're half the day is good. I mean, even if we're making light of it and making a joke, okay, so what did you do to manage to not drink? Or what is your coping skill to manage to make it through the day? So that you can recognize some success, so that you can recognize that she's A-okay. Now, we have not identified yet if she considers drinking to be a problem. We still have not
Well,
identified that.
I want
But
to.
she did. She
did.
said, the
Yeah.
first thing she said was, I have a taste for
For
alcohol.
alcohol, yeah.
Oh, but is that a problem?
Well, that's maybe what she should
feel-
explore.
Yeah, I feel like that was the biggest problem. I feel very
That's the word.
she got a taste for alcohol. I was like, what? We got
But
an
does
alcoholic
a
in her
taste for
hand?
alcohol mean I have a problem?
Well,
Oh, if she
what
has a
did
bottle
say?
in the
She's-
trunk?
That was the first thing she came up, and then she has a bottle in her trunk.
In her trunk.
She's
Not-
always
that doesn't
the first thing that she does is go straight to a drink. She constantly.
But you know how many
is thinking
people
about
Yeah.
the drink.
Think of that and will
But
tell
she's
you that
actually
they don't have a
she's actually
problem?
doing it.
But she's actually admitting
But
to
she
it.
came
She's actually
to
doing it.
her.
She's coming
Okay,
to a
okay,
therapist.
Pedro, did you
Yeah.
think that she admitted she's a drunk?
No.
I didn't, I didn't.
No, I think
No,
she's
let's do
admitting
that.
to herself that she has a problem, and she's
Okay,
there.
then I would have
That's
to,
my problem.
then
She's
I
aware
would
of her
have to
problem.
be, I would need clarity.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably because of my
Exactly.
ignorance.
Right.
Because,
See,
She's
I
the
would-
one that-
the first
she was
thing
like,
I
what
would
seems to be
ask-
the problem today? Like, what brings you in today? She was like, I have a thirst for alcohol.
okay.
So
are
when
you
she-
an
The very
alcoholic?
first thing I was like, we got an alcoholic in our hands.
Are you an alcoholic? Pretend I'm the therapist.
Yeah, no.
Incongruence.
Okay, but she
Well,
just said I
it
drink a
could
lot.
be.
She just said a lot. She said a lot. It was
But
exactly
just
the-
because the
Yeah.
client drinks a lot does not mean they
I'm with
think
her.
that they're an alcoholic.
I'm with her.
So that's
No,
where you
I
would
get
say,
that.
what's a lot to
I
you?
drink. Right. Like, I drink. But.
Yeah, I know. But you don't think you're an
But I can
alcoholic.
go days without even like 'cause I
Exactly.
just, like staying busy. It just
Exactly.
seems
You're proving her
to
point.
me that that's not the case for her, and she.
Well, that's
See,
what you
I
have
didn't pick up on
See,
that at
you have to
all.
clarify. Like I would have
You
said
need
when she said a
clarification.
lot.
Well, I'm not saying
I would have
that-
said, what does
I'm
that
not-
mean?
That's the thread I'm picking, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm jumping to it. Like that's for sure she's not.
Okay,
No.
so here is a
I'm
perfect
I'm thinking
clear
this is a
case
thread.
where we need definition.
Like I just that's
Right.
my thread is what
And
I'm
look,
saying.
I
would be thinking
blatantly
that thread
asked
out
her,
there.
are you an alcoholic? And she says no.
No, of course. I
Can
get
you define an alcoholic for me?
I would even define what does it mean to have taste of it. I don't even know what that means.
Exactly.
That's
What does
why
that
my
mean?
question
I kind of
was,
just
what
knew.
taste?
I knew exactly
Right.
what you
Yeah,
meant.
and
Yes.
she was like,
I
well,
kind of want to go
strawberry,
there.
then
I was
I
like,
like
wait.
that.
Well, you were asking a taste in terms of what the drink was.
Like the flavors and stuff.
Right, but what
What
can
does
you
it mean?
define
A taste,
exactly
a
what a
craving.
taste?
A craving, a jonesing.
Okay,
Like,
so
you
that's
want
what
it.
Yeah, I
she
have
has
no
to
clue.
tell us. She's the client. She has to tell
Right,
us what
that's
that
where we
means.
have to start fine tuning.
Okay.
But we already see a place where we can create empathy, right?
Right.
The empathy is the fact that she can make it through the day. You already can start creating a safe space where she's not judging. Old Francis, pre-44, pre-2017, I would have already been like, damn. Judgment, and you would have seen it on my face, because everything I think you see.
And she also said she at work she'll imagine taking a drink.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's something else. Oh, okay. So is that your
But
coping
again,
skill?
are we judging?
Yeah.
But see, that's why.
I would have totally judged. Where now I'm listening to her and I'm trying to think, okay, where can I be impacted? Because I've changed.
Yes,
So
I think
we-
that's another
Me
thing.
too,
Like, I
like,
think I
totally.
might have
Yeah.
to refer you because I have a drinking problem that I've been working on, and I'm very judgmental right now. That's why I can't come up with questions. Like
You
that's why
can, don't say that. Okay, well that's, see, it's hard. This is years and years and
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
now what if
practicing.
it's one-on-one and just how one person, okay, it's one-on-one right here, he understood something, but me saying the same thing, it took two
The
different
clarity.
directions.
It's
Yeah,
like what
like,
she said, the
so
clarity.
what if it's a one-on-one? How do we direct it back to where it's supposed to be, like that
You
understanding?
reframe the thing for the client and you make sure, oh, so what I hear you saying is,
Right.
that's always the technique. You make sure.
You
that
make
what
sure you
say-
understand what
it
they're
would've been
trying to
better
say.
if she would have said like, you know, define taste, clarify taste for me. What
That's
exactly
what-
do you
yeah,
mean
'cause
by the
when I-
word taste?
Right.
Is it the taste
Those
of flavor?
things I
Is
was
it the
trying to
craving?
get to.
And she could say, oh, so are you saying that you can't be without alcohol every day? Or is it taste to you so-and-so? And she can redefine it in her own words, and then that gives you an opportunity to say, no, that's not what I meant. Or she can straight up say to you, define taste, or, yeah, define taste.
And I think sometimes, being a therapist doesn't mean you know everything. I'm not much of a drinker. So to me, when she said, I have a taste wrong, that was curious to me. The first thing I would say, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I was totally like,
What does that
never heard
mean?
that term before.
And it's okay to say, I
thought
don't
that was a very good
understand.
way to say it, that I like to drink a lot. I thought, look how clever and elegant that is.
It's okay to feel uncertain. That's what I'm saying, and not understand.
This is an
That's
art.
why you
This
have
is
to
not a
clarify.
science. This is an art.
Yeah.
And this takes years and years and years. I told you this morning I wasn't sure where this was going. And I went with a hunch of decluttering. I said, let me start with that, and it happened to work out. So you don't know all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to say I'm sorry because earlier it kind of felt like it was almost like a role play type situation, but then I kind of brought myself back that it was actually like real stuff, and then I kind of just
It
went
is
up
a
and I
role
said,
play, but it's always real.
but then I said to myself,
Always.
but that's what I'm saying. Then I kind of jumped and I apologized. I was like, well, we have an alcoholic situation here, but I kind of just jumped, so I apologize. I didn't mean to say it like that.
It doesn't mean that she is or isn't, but whatever the client is role playing, behind it is something.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I felt
Because it's
we
coming
need to
from their
apologize.
brain and their thread,
All right, cool.
always. So whether it's the exact thing or not.
How you know I even caught on to it?
And
I did.
I felt bad. I had to clear my conscience over it. So I
That's the Pisces. Okay, so let's create some empathy. Let's start with that.
How?
Creating empathy is quote
Support.
unquote simple.
Being
It's
supportive, being
It shows
positive,
that,
supportive.
you know, that you're not
Can I-
judging her, that
Can
you
I say like something about me? or-
personal, absolutely.
Yeah?
If it's relevant, absolutely.
Okay, so for myself, speaking on my own behalf, I like to go to ladies' night, and I love my white Chardonnay. I love that. So, anyways, how does do you go out for drinks on occasions, or is it like a daily thing?
It used to be a daily thing, but I'm not one to go out and drink. Everything is home, safety,
Okay, so you like comfort
big time.
more than
Remember, open-ended question. Open-ended.
Okay.
And she just said safety, not comfort. So you have to go with what she's going with. What makes you feel
No
safe?
synonyms.
Comfort with
No
Okay,
synonyms.
I mean, if you associate it and you see it as the same thing, she can redirect you if it doesn't. But don't say, oh, okay, comfort, try to find an open-ended question where you go ahead.
Was there ever a moment in your life where you didn't feel safe?
Okay. While I'm drinking or just period?
Let's start with how, before, not drinking. No, let's suppose not drinking. You're not drinking.
I've been drinking for a while.
Ding, ding,
That's a
ding.
perfect.
You said you were drinking for a while. How long is a while?
I was drinking before I was 16. My grandma had a
Schnapps? That's what grandmothers.
What is it called?
Stereotypical.
I can't think of the actual term on that. But my grandma sold liquor.
Oh, okay, so it was a
Shot house. There you go.
A what?
Shot house. Get
It's like a little $5.
It's where you
Mom
go
and
to
pop
someone's
shop.
house to buy liquor, like a shot, a drink, a shot house. That's what it's
Oh,
called
okay,
in
shot
my
house.
little area.
Wow.
Okay.
It's another definition.
Okay, so if I didn't know, I would become, and a way to create empathy is let the client educate you. Oh my God, I don't know about that, can you tell me about that? That sounds so cool. Like, because if there is a socioeconomic difference, that you could turn the client off,
Oh,
okay? Or a cultural difference, you can turn the client off. I had a teacher, my mentor for a gazillion years, Dr. Sakazo, and she taught my public health nutrition class. And in public health nutrition, you would often go to people's houses. And she said, if they give you chitlins, you eat chitlins. They give you boiled chitlins, you eat them boiled chitlins. And she would, I never ever forgot that. Basically, what they serve you, you eat. You are not better than them to not eat what they serve you. And that's the same thing. So if someone is educating you, you don't you show interest. What is that? Tell me about that. Oh my God, that is so cool. Oh, do you know that my grandfather, something similar? Whatever. You start creating that rapport. You don't just throw it like nothing. If the whole session is talking about the shot house, you just created a rapport, that person will come back. Okay? So we are not in a hurry to get something done in a session. Creating rapport and empathy is enough for a session. If it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions just to do that, remember, their mother sucked, their mother fucked them up. If for 5 weeks you get to show them that you care about them and you're actually listening to them,
And that's,
you did more than their mom ever did.
and that's the number one thing you do in a therapy session. If you go to a therapist, whether you're the client or the therapist, if you don't build that rapport in that first session,
They
you're
ain't
done.
coming back.
You're done. You're not coming back. You're done. It has to be right there. And I've had experiences where I've taken, my daughter needed a therapist, and I took her to this lady, and I walked out. Remember I told you that story? And my daughter's like, are we coming back? No, we are never coming back. Ever.
So did you know what a shot house was?
no, I didn't.
Okay, so I want you to express interest and ask questions and find out about that. Because
Okay.
that is the source of where her drinking started. There is
Yeah.
a connection there with her, was it your auntie or your grandma?
Grandma.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay, so that sounds different. What is a shot house?
A shot house is literally a house where someone sells you drinks, mainly shots. You have your $1 shots, your $2 shots, or you could just buy alcohol. Difference with my grandma is it started as her selling food. My grandma's a big drinker. She loves to drink. I'm sorry. When I be talking, I be just thinking of stuff. Okay, so my grandma is a big.
Wait a minute. I want to hear a story.
I want to know your grandmother. You have to let her paint a picture. I want to know the house. I want to know the grandma. I imagine Medea. I imagine your grandmother with the shotgun. I have a picture. I want you to
Right.
paint this.
First thing I would have said is, why are you laughing? Why are you smiling?
Get in there. Let them relive that.
Okay.
Tell me what you're thinking right now.
You would ask that for any friend if they're telling you a story. You would be like, oh my God, tell me.
You know what? It's just I gotta get out of my comfort zone between friends and professionalism because I feel like that's me going into deep with the client.
Well, I think it's more nerves than anything, and I do think that there is a fine line and that students do have that fear, so that's very normal, you're not odd. But it's a natural human reaction, because you don't want incongruence, you don't want dissonance. If a client is telling you a story and laughing, and you're there stoic, she's gonna be like, who the fuck is this bro? I'm coming back.
And she was about
So
to
you
end the
also
conversation.
have to be responsive.
Okay.
You can't be incongruent, because then it goes both ways.
Okay.
So I am like, oh my God, tell me about this woman. I want to know her. Can you take me now?
It's body language. If you see her laughing, it just like when you hear
I laugh
when
when
a
I
client
laugh.
will start to cry. I remember in my training, if they would start to cry,